Hey everybody, it was awesome to see you guys this week on our Zoom call. For those of you who weren't able to make it, it was a nice little check-in, and we just kind of caught up and discussed a little bit about the charts project that's going to be due here pretty soon. So I do want to schedule another Zoom meeting before the end of the semester. Until then, we're going to have another week of some virtual class. This week, I'd like to have you guys continue working on your charting projects. Hopefully last week you got one chart with your own graph working with the other one. And now this week, I'd like you to work on the other chart so that you have two working charts within the one file. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to our class site here so you can see what I'm kind of doing here. I'm going to share my desktop here. And so this week, for the week of April 20th, we're going to talk about two major things, scraping and APIs. Now, these are more tutorials that you can go through. You're not going to be graded on them, but it's really good information to have, especially if you see a future in coding and data journalism specifically. Scraping is where you can go to a website and grab data maybe it's not in a nice, beautiful CSV file, or it's not in a way that you can access it in an Excel spreadsheet or something. Sometimes our data that we find is going to be on a table on Wikipedia or something like that. Well, it's not easy to take that stuff that's in HTML tables and bring them into CSVs or Excel spreadsheets to manipulate. And so scraping allows you to create a bot that will go out and find your data and pull it into an Excel spreadsheet. It's pretty neat. So here on this link, it's called Scraping with Python and Beautiful Soup. So Python is a language, a coding language. It's actually a server-side language, and there's a lot that you can do with Python. A lot of people are finding jobs right now, and people say that if you're going to pick two major, code program languages to learn Python and learn JavaScript, just because they are so far-reaching and there's so much you can do with them. Well, one of the things you can do with Python is that you can build a bot that will go out and find certain content for you from a website. So what I'm going to do is a tutorial here that kind of goes through how to do that. If you have a Mac, then you will definitely be able to follow along and do this on your own with me. If you don't have a Mac, then I'm sorry, you will not be able to, but you can at least just watch the tutorial. So what this takes me to is the Python, and that's up here in the Code Actually page under Advanced Topics. It's called Python for Scraping. And basically, it teaches you a little bit about Python. And first, we need to make sure Python is installed and that we have a certain version of Python installed on our system. So I'm going to go to my terminal here. Terminal is a way to code directly to your computer. We've talked a little bit about it already in past modules. And hopefully in the one that you had watched before, you were able to create some basic commands to your computer and get it to start talking to your computer. So right now I am logged into my local computer here. It's my Johns Mickley username. I can actually go ls, and what that's going to do is going to list out all the directories that are in this particular folder. So if I want to go into one of these, like if I want to go access my desktop, I could do a cd, which would change directory, space, desktop, and now I can go to my desktop. I can also speak commands, like if I wanted to create a new directory on my desktop, I could do it mkdir, that means make directory, and then I can make one and I'll call it scraper. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a brand new folder on my desktop called scraper. And so now if I go into my Finder and I look on my desktop, there is a new folder here called scraper that was created just now as I made this. And so that is one way that we can speak directly to our computers through this terminal. Beyond that, it says here in the script code that we need to see what version of Python we have. So I'm going to type in Python -- version. Make sure you get both dashes in here and that it's all lowercase. Also in the tutorial, it has this $, and that's really, it indicates the terminal prompt. So you don't have to type in the $, you just have to type in what's after it. And so in this case, it's just Python -- version. Make sure that there's a space between Python and the -- and then you can press enter, and it shows me that I have Python version 2.7.10, and that's exactly what we want right now. And so also it says if you don't have these things, PIP, that's Python scripts that will allow you to have packages install. They're kind of like plugins in a way, if you want to think about them like that within WordPress. But anyway, if you want to install different versions of things and access different libraries, it's called pip. So we can see what version of pip we have, and it is going to go through that, and it will work with our version of Python. And if you don't have it, then you can run this easy install, and then also do these things to start installing these different libraries. One that we're going to use specifically in this program is called Beautiful Soup. And what that does is it allows us to look at HTML files and scrape them and put them into Excel spreadsheets and export into CSVs. So it's a pretty great little program. A lot of people who are data scrapers will use Beautiful Soup. It's pretty common. And so what we've done is we did an mkdir scraper, and that made that folder on the desktop called scraper. And the next thing it says to do is do a cd scraper. And that allows us to change the directory into that scraper folder that we had created earlier. So right now I'm on my desktop, but I want to actually do it again, cd space scraper, and that's going to allow me now to access the scraper folder, and I'm inside the scraper folder. Now from here, I want to take all this code over here, this code snippet that's on the right, and I'm going to go ahead and copy it, and I'm going to put it in a new Sublime Text file. Okay, so what we can see here is happening is this is all Python code. Now it's going to import a library that allows us to use export to a CSV file. It's also going to allow us to make requests, and what that means, we can go to a certain URL and make a request of it. And then it's going to import this Beautiful Soup stuff that allows us to scrape from the site. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this, do a file save, and I'm just going to save it in that folder called scraper, and I'm going to save it as scrape.py. Now the py extension stands for Python, and that's what language we're using. Just like if we were typing in HTML or JavaScript, we would save it as an extension of .html or .js. This is Python, so we're going to save it as scrape.py. Go ahead and save it, and I'm going to make sure that it's actually made its way into that folder. So I'm on a desktop, go to the scraper folder, and there it is. And so again, it should just be on your desktop called scraper, and I basically just took this and copied it. Now what it's going to do is it's going to go to access this Wikipedia page. It's a list of the Academy Award winning films. I'm going to go ahead and open that in a new tab just so you can see what it is. It's a basic Wikipedia page. It has all of everything into a big table, and basically we want to take this table and put it into a CSV file. So what we're going to do is go ahead and access my code. And it's also going to create some variables, as you can see here. As it goes to get a response, it's going to assign different commands into different variables, and then it's going to push everything into a table. And really what it's doing here, this is kind of the magic line of code here, is line 10, is it's going to go into the HTML code, it's going to go find a div, and it's going to look for the attribute of class and MW content LTR. Now these are unique to this particular page, and they were created specifically for this example. And so what it's going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you in this browser that you can right click on the table and go to inspect, and I can now inspect the code that's behind this table. Now what it's doing is it has to find the table that you're looking for in the code, and as it's looking through this whole HTML file, it has to hone down to it has to know where this particular table is that we're talking about. And so what it's doing in the code is it's looking for anything with the div class of MW content LTR. So if I was to look here and search for that, div content LTR, and that's what it says right here. It's a class of MW content LTR. So in the code, it's going to search, the web page is going to search until it finds a div class of this, And then it's going to look for the table, which is right here, the table that's inside of that parent div. And it's going to bring back all that stuff. Now back in the code, it's not just going to go look for that div, but then it's going to go and build an array, and that's what these brackets are. It's going to build a brand new array called list of rows, and then it's going to go find every row in the table for every TR, and it's going to find add text to every cell, and that's what this list of cells is, and it's going to put that data into each TD. So it's basically going through all the TRs and the TDs, and it's going to build a table that Python is going to turn into, it's going to append all of those into a big table. Then what it's going to do is going to push all that stuff into a CSV, into our folder that we're working in, and it's going to, we're going to see it all work, all in one kind of shot. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then I'm going to go into my terminal, and I'm going to type in, now that I'm in my scraper folder on my desktop, I'm going to type in Python space scrape.py because that's the name of the file. I'm going to press enter. Now it gave me some warnings because some of the language we're using is outdated, but this is all written in Python version 2.7, and so since we're running that same version, it's not going to have a problem. It's just saying that there are certain versions that are updated more. I'm going to go back into my desktop, go to the scraper folder, and look, it created this film.csv. I did not create that. It was empty before. Now when I double click this film.csv, I can open it up in Excel, and now you can see it's in a nice table. This has all been scraped. It's all a brand new file that was just created moments ago. I feel like I did a magic trick. It's pretty amazing when it actually works. So what it did really quickly is it went to the URL, it searched for that TR and TD, and it pushed it into this, created a brand new file called film.csv. And then for this exercise, it says you can modify the scraper above to scrape the contents of the page, a list of top 100 newspapers. And so it's saying that all you have to do is take this URL, copy it, and replace it with this URL. And then it says that you have to find another class for you to replace with this one, because this is the Wikipedia class, div class that the other table was in, but this table from this website will be in a different div, and so you have to figure out how to get that running. But really, you can use this for any website that you find that has a table on it. Now next, there's a multi-page scraper example, and this again is all Python, and so I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to do this the exact same way as I did it before. I'm going to go into my code, and I'll just replace all of my code with this. And so it's going to import some libraries like the other one had. Then it's going to pull from Beautiful Soup. This is the URL that it's going to grab from. And then it's going to be assigning these variables, running the scraper, and then it's going to go into the div, into the content place ID. And in this case, it's an ID, not a class. Then it's going to start building. It's going to look for all the H2s, and it's going to put them in. And then it's going to find all the LIs, and it's going to put those too. So these are list items and H2s. Now, if we just take this URL and copy it and paste it into a new tab, you can see that it is going to give us a list of musicians in the Austin area. But it's all paginated. So there's pages here. So if you want to scrape not just a list of items that are not even in a table, but are instead listed as, let's go ahead and look at the inspect here. These are going to be in H2s. So you can see H2, each band name is going to be in an H2. And then what's in a list item is the region and the business contact and the phone number and all that other stuff. And that's what we see here in the code. It's looking at the H2s and it's looking at the list items, and it's going to assign them to a big spreadsheet. So I can, just in the same way, I'm going to save this and rerun it. And in this case, it's going to push it into music.csv. And I'm going to go ahead and run that, press enter. And now if I look into my folder, I have one called music.csv that I can open up. And there it is. So it just grabbed the top 20. Now the problem with that is there are more than 20 bands here. It's just that they are paginated. And so we could sit there and grab every single URL, P1. We could run it again for P2. We could run it again for P3, and these are all different URLs that you might see here, right? So this is P1, we could do it for P2, P3, and just keep doing that over and over again. Or it has in code actually this another piece of code that allows us to scrape all pages instead of just the one there, because often these are going to be multi-page websites. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, do a copy, and paste it into this code here. Now in this case, what's going to happen is it's still going to go to that page, except it's only going to go to P, the letter P. But we've assigned this URL to the variable site, okay? And you can see down here, it's going to take that site and it's going to add a number every time. It's going to add a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. And it's only going to go through the numbers in range 1 to 4, because if we do all 200 of them right now, it might ruin their servers. We're just going to do 4 of them for now, 1 through 4 in the range. And then basically it's going to append that 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the end of this URL, P1, P2, P3, P4. It's still going to search for everything, but it's also going to find anything in an anchor tag, so a link. And then it's going to push it into this Music Austin CSV. So I'm going to go ahead and try this, run the scrape again. And now it's not going to just stop at the first one, but it's going to run all 4. It's also going to put it to sleep every 2 milliseconds. And so basically what's going to happen is it will not overload the server that it's accessing. So now if I go into that folder, I can go to Music Austin, double click it, and now it gave me these groups, right? And so it actually went through, and we can see every break is where it went in and scraped all those files. So that's basically how to scrape pages using the code Python. It's a very powerful language, and you can kind of go through and work on that. The next thing that I wanted to cover a little bit was going to be the APIs. And APIs allow you to interact with public data on Twitter and Spotify and a lot of the technology that we use every day that gathers data. There is a video here that kind of goes through how to use the Twitter API. But if you click on this code actually link, it'll take you also to the Twitter API, how to create one that does a basic search. Now again, this is Python. You're going to be creating new folders, tweetbasic.py, and just like the way that we did it with the other example here of Python for scraping, we're going to do the one for Twitter API. So these are just ways, again, to access content that is already out there in masses. People interact with the Twitter API all the time. You're going to have to get something called the consumer key, consumer secret, but all of that is going to be covered in the video that I have linked on our course website. Beyond that, what I'd like for you guys to do this week is to make sure that you read Understanding Data in the Data Journalism Handbook, and so post to Slack on there, and then continue working on the charting project. So again, this is going to be due April 26th, so you still have some time to work on it by midnight. And I want you to put it in the subdomain charts.yourwebsite.com. So you're going to have to create a new subdomain. And then I want you to name the file index.html. So the way that I have it right now on my desktop is that I have it called both chart, and they do both work, but if I upload that to a subdomain, it won't work. So when you're ready to turn it in, just rename it to be index.html, and then that's the file that you're going to need to upload to your subdomain. I don't want your charts to be anything more than just this. You don't have to worry about putting into Bootstrap or anything like that. It just has to be 2 charts that work. I will be available on email, and if you want to make an appointment on Zoom, we can meet up this week as well. But take this week to experiment with Python, and take this week also to work with APIs to see if you can get them working. Now, one quick caveat is that we've been working with the terminal on a Mac. If you want to do this on PC, you can. There might be some minor different changes there, but for the most part, it should work. The program you're going to be using is called Command Prompt, and it's going to be very similar, but it's a way to interact with your PC using a terminal like this one. So enjoy this week. Have a good time, and let me know if you have any questions.